Want to do that again? Okay. I think that is working. Okay. So hi, I'm Valerie Sessions. I am a very proud Charleston Women in Tech board member. See other board members out there, so thank you for coming. And also our own Nina Magnuson, the Charleston Women in Tech Executive Director. Thank you all, and there she is. Thank you all so much for coming today. A huge thank you to Michele Heyward for being our Mentor of the Month, number 4. She will be telling us about progressing and pivoting in your career, probably give us a really good kick in the pants too. That's what I'm kind of hopeful for, to get started, get going with that. I'll introduce her a little bit in a second, but first, in the way of announcements, we do have our 5th of our series mentor program on February the 3rd with Phoebe Bickford. And that topic will be about loving your work-life balance. So please join us again, February 3rd, same time and place for that. Second, we have a very exciting collaboration with the Girls in Tech. So Girls in Tech is going to do a book club, and they've invited us to join. So we would do a joint book club. It's about 6 weeks. The book that we would be looking at is called Broadband by Claire Evans, and that's a play on the word broad. So it'll be talking about all of the women who made the internet such a wonderful place. And who were so instrumental, who we may or may not know. So it'd be a great way, one, to really learn more about the history of women in the internet and in that time period. And then also a way to connect with Girls in Tech and maybe find a little mentoring there as well. For everyone. So please, we'll have some information on that later. It'll be in February, and we would love to have you join us. And a big thank you there to Savannah Edwards from Boeing for helping us with that venture. All right, so you didn't come to hear me, you came to hear Michele. So she is the CEO and founder of PositiveHire, and she seeks with this company to bridge the gap between businesses and underrepresented women in STEM, both to help them get placement, but also to help the businesses to accommodate and to change in order to accommodate. She has a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering and also a Master of Science in Industrial Management from Clemson, so go Tigers. And if you have any questions during this event, if you'll just add them to the chat, and if they're specifically for Michele, please put a Q in front of it, so we'll kind of go through them at the end and make sure we get those to her. But if it's for a question for the group, you don't have to use that designation. All right, so without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Michele.
Hello, everybody. Just a little tech issues. Wouldn't be the world we're in using technology if you didn't have issues. And being an organization around tech, it really secures your job, right? If you build the tech and there are never any issues, what do we need humans for, right? So it's great to be here. Great to be among others, especially in a technical space. And today I want to make this as interactive. I can talk all day. As an engineer, that may seem different, but it is really more about you. So if there are questions that you have, like you want me to answer it right then, um, we can definitely stop at that point. I added some extra slides in here just in case any of you were extra quiet. I did one corporate talk in December. They literally were, I don't know if they were just ready to go on holiday. I was like, I did not put any filler information, and it was the one few times I didn't do that, but I learned my lesson for 2021. So we're going to get started. I just want to make sure, Valerie, if you can tell me if you can see the screen okay,
I can.
and then I'll know if we're good to go.
It looks great, and I
Okay,
can.
great. So progress. All right, let me do one thing. Because I'm out here on CountryNet, as I call it. So let me turn off my camera to make sure we're good to go. Here we go. And wherever my screen went. Okay, here we go. All right. So progressing and pivoting in your career. We're going to talk about what you'll learn today. Who is Michele Heyward? What are your career goals? Planning your pivot, create a strategy, specifically a career strategy, and then executing it. And executing part, we can really talk more in depth of of those exact questions. I put in an example of where I think women need some help the most, and it's a lot of time I've spent last year specifically with my community on this execution part, specifically in networking, especially virtually. So Valerie went through and said, I'm a Clemson grad, civil engineering, industrial management, but my experience is more than just in construction. I spent over 12 years in construction, building a power grid and a fossil fuel plant. Before that, I did technical sales for Eaton up in Asheville. And before that, I had a short stint in technology transfer on Technology Drive in Westboro, Massachusetts. So I've done a few different things. And I still ended up back in tech after spending time in these three different areas, and all of them really are interconnected, from technology transfer to technical sales, which I hated, but being a founder, all I do is sales every day. And then even in construction management, dealing with clients, not having to do the sales, but the execution of $1 billion projects is really, really important. And so we can talk about what does that pivot look like. And people say, oh, it's easier to do it earlier in your career than later. I think the later part is more so we are focused on job titles as opposed to really our core competencies and skill set. And so we'll get into that as well. Just a little bit about Positive Hire. And the first thing I want to talk about, your goals. What is a goal? An idea of the future or desired result that a person or a group of people envision, plan, and commit to achieve. People endeavor to reach goals within a finite time by setting deadlines. This is what I find quite often. We talk about where we want to go in our career or with our career goals, but we have not written it down. We have not shared it with anybody, not our best friends from our childhood, not our significant other or spouses, and definitely not your pets or your kids, like they could care less. But these are the people that are really core to you reaching those goals. And the reason I say that is oftentimes women wear several hats and take on a lot of responsibility. But when you share your goals, especially around your career, you would be surprised how responsible your children become, how responsible your significant other becomes in supporting you reaching that goal. So you also want to make sure your goals are smart. So they're specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, and time bound. And I'm gonna go back to realistic. A lot of times people don't think they can do something, or they'll say I'll be 40 or 45 or 50 when that happens before I reach the goal. Well, you hope you'll be 40, 45, 50, or 55, period. But why not have work to reach that goal by the time you hit that age? So it's not so much that it's not realistic, it's that you are looking at all of the barriers that you may have to overcome to reach that. And so, how do you make things more realistic for you? Is really planning out how to overcome each one of those barriers so it's no longer unrealistic to you. So you want to be specific. You might be changing, pivoting to software engineering or product management. Maybe you're going over to uh, um, medical informatics, and you're like, you want to be that specific, and maybe you want to do it in a certain industry. You want to be with certain companies. Maybe you want to be with one of the FANG companies. Whatever it is, you really want to be specific. And you could say, and that measurable part is you really want to come in, let's say, at a certain level. You want to come in at level 5, you want to come in at a manager, you want to come in at a director level, and be very, very specific about that. You want to make sure it's a measurable, assignable. Who's responsible for making it happen? It's not always just you. And sometimes you have to lean into or really focus on more so who in your network can help you get there. Also, do you have gaps in your network where you need to have them filled in order to reach this goal? So we're going to talk about that a little bit more as well. So let's look at types of career goals. Maybe, and I say you can select 2 to 3, but really they're going to intertwine with each other. So you're looking for a new job, and maybe in looking for a new job, you need to have an ally, whether inside an organization, inside an industry, and so these are intertwined together. You may already be inside an organization and you want to switch roles. Maybe you want to switch out of a technical role and go into marketing or sales. And so you're looking for a sponsor to help you transition to that role. Maybe you're redefining your personal brand. You were an educator and now you're going into technology or MarTech as a salesperson, and you're trying to figure out, how do I make this work? How do I show up as this new MarTech salesperson? Now you're like, I need to grow new connections. Everybody I know is in education, or they were in education. So how do I go about and grow new connections? What are my transferable skills? I do not want to come in entry level, but I have no experience in this industry. Maybe you need to attend industry events. More than likely, they will be virtual still in 2021. And then you want to position yourself to be open and more visible than you may be right now, in order to reach this new career goal or to pivot in your career. For many of you that are in the midst of a pivot, you're probably more focused on how do you redefine your personal brand, identifying your transferable skills, growing new connections, and maybe either it could be repositioning or redefine your personal brand. You could do either one or both of these. It just depends on how much time you have. Attending industry events right now, so many people are online. What you may find is just by growing new connections, you don't necessarily have to attend industry events. So 2020 has shown that are more likely to respond and engage with you during the pandemic. And so it is really interesting to see how, oh, you should come to Grace Hopper. It's like, no, you don't really have to. Just go in the Facebook group and tell people what you're looking for, or send people LinkedIn connections and have an ask. And so it's changed a lot in the last 10 months. So really, really focus on that and how you can leverage everybody being online, or just about everybody being online, to really make those new powerful connections. Now let's focus specifically on those of you that are planning your pivot. And I can tell you, as a founder, we have heard pivot so much in the last 10 months, we cringe at it. But in this case, it is a really good thing. It is very exciting and scary. And with anything that has great reward, usually there's some fear behind it. But we always say do it scared because it's so worth it. So, what is a career pivot? It's change a professional or job path to use skill set that you have in a new industry, profession, or career path. So, you're going to do a change. And I want to really focus on your skill set. How many of you, and you can just put, if you're making a pivot, how many of you have focused on your skill set that you already possess, opposed to creating and going out and reading books, taking online courses, getting a new degree, getting a certification? How many of you have just focused on your skill set that you already possess? You can just say yes, a one, nobody. Okay, so this is going to be interesting. Even if you're an elementary school teacher, right? And you're going into software engineering, you do a lot of planning on both sides before you write your code. You literally plan out, you do your lesson plans for language arts, and you write all of that out. And that's the same thing you do with software engineering. Somebody doesn't just walk up to you and say, "Hey," and Valerie can chime in here because she's more the developer than me. I'm the non-coding founder. But you literally have to plan out what the code is to do before you write it. What's the outcome? And
Yep.
so these are the. Go ahead, Valerie.
Absolutely. And I would think even in being an elementary school teacher, if you're brave enough to enter that place and corral all those children, then maybe you could corral people to do their code. So,
Exactly. And also, what does it look like when you're working? Because you're not going to usually code in silos. You're coding part of this project overall system. And what does that look like? And oftentimes you have to work with the students, say, okay, well, you didn't do this part right, but you did that part right. And really going through and showing them and teaching them and thinking about how do I explain to them what's right and what's wrong. And it's the same thing, the same skill set you're going to take into a software development team. So don't think, oh, as an elementary school teacher, I know nothing and I have to start. No, you have a skill set. And it's really important to understand that. Let's go back one. Am I going in the right direction? Okay. Yep. All right. So now, vision of your pivot. And this is the same thing, even if you are progressing in your career. So a lot of these have an overlap. What does your future look like at after the pivot? Like you know where you want to, like I want to be this thing, but what does it really look like? Why are you making this pivot? Is it more money? Is it more time? You're bored with what you're doing. You always dreamed about doing this, but you didn't have the opportunity before. How do you feel about making the pivot? Are you excited? Are you scared or scare-sighted? You're both of them at the same time. So really, really focus on how you're feeling, why you're making this pivot, and what does it look like afterwards. Because sometimes you may realize it's not a pivot that you really need to make, it's something else in your life. And for others of you, you're like, the pivot, this is exactly what I want to do. This is where I want to be for X, Y, and Z reason. And that's complete, both of them are right. It's for you. So there's no shame, but just focus on these three questions to really understand and understand your pivot. Gaps to close to pivot. The network is usually the largest part of that, and this community helps you close that gap in your network. And what I mean is, you don't know anybody who's doing what you think you want to do. You're not sure how to make your way into this space. You're not sure where you want to go. Um, and and you're like, who do I talk to about this? One thing I advise my clients and my community is use LinkedIn. Oftentimes, it is one of the best ways to do something. If you're doing a coding boot camp, and I get this from a lot of boot campers, is the program they went to is not very good with helping them find jobs. And I like name three other boot camps, and they'll tell me. I said, now go to LinkedIn and find other people who did your boot camp and other boot camps and see where they worked. Reach out to them and ask them how they got their job, and ask them if where they're working um, is hiring. Like, what was their first company that they worked for after coming out of coding boot camp? And that really helps you understand and plan out your strategy. Does your pivot include education? Right? And that could be a coding boot camp. That could be going back and getting a 2 year, 4 year degree, a master's, or a PhD. Also, the self confidence. The self confidence part is us feeling as though we can't do it or you can't do it. How do I do it? Sometimes others see things in you, you don't see it in yourself. You probably have done more great things in your life and dealt with more than a lot of people around you, and you don't even realize it because you've had to do it. So think back to what is the thing that you had to do this one time and you never thought or you didn't know how you were going to do it, but you did it and you were happy when it was over. And take that same tenacity and use it to make this pivot. How do you figure out what type of education is the most respected by people hiring? And is it best to get you where you want to go? Uh, that really depends on the industry. So, if you could say what industry it is, and even if you go to HR companies, HR professionals, each employer will have a different response because some companies will say, we would never ever hire anybody without a college degree. Other people will say, we absolutely will. And I will, just being in construction, there were people in management up to, I want to say, director level who had no college degree. They literally had worked their way through the company. They starting at 18 in the mailroom. It's a different part of the country, different time, but yes, I moved from Southern PA and have noticed logistics warehouse is very big in this area. Yes, it is now. It is very much so. So yeah, if you could be more specific about an industry, and maybe we could talk about it. It is really going to vary by employer and sometimes in a niche. Some of the most forgiving and places to get the best opportunity is actually in the startup space or small businesses. They're really looking for people who are willing to do the work and willing to learn and grow with them. So I would focus on those areas. Sometimes if you know you really don't want to go back and get a whole other degree, you just want to take some classes online through Udemy or something like that and focus on that. Um, I passed coding, but I was civil engineering, so I only had to take like Fortran 77 and SAS, and I was happy. I did a coding boot camp and pivoted software engineer, but I feel like that has changed a lot. Yeah. I don't know. I want to hear more about that. What has changed about software engineering? And we'll see, and and we'll talk about it at the end if you want to. Southern PA. Yeah, I lived in Western PA for a while. I'm back happily back in the in South Carolina. Let's see. So other things that gaps you may have in your pivot, you could be relocating to a new area where you don't again have that network. You're not sure of what the culture is like, and so you have some other gaps that you're having to fill in. You may have to relocate. You may realize what you want to do is really important to you, but it is going to require you to pick up and move your family, and you're not sure how that looks. You're not sure of the cost, but you don't have that plan. And I think sometimes we also get stuck in our own heads when it comes to pivoting. So we talked about your goals. We've talked about the pivot some. Now let's talk about creating a career strategy. So for your career strategy, what is a career strategy? A career strategy is any behavior, activity, or experience designed to help a person meet career goals. This is why we started with career goals first. A career strategy represents a conscious choice by an individual to the type of investment he or she is willing to make in attempting to reach career objectives. So it's going to take your goals and like what are all the steps you really need to take in order to reach there. Is that's more of a plan, but like everybody that all the resources you need to really get this going and execute to make that pivot or that progression. Whose help do you need in order to make this happen? What kind of help do you need? You might not need a surgeon. You might just need a career counselor. When and how will you make the pivot? Meaning, will it be several years and maybe 2 or 3 roles before you get to a CTO position, which is where you want to be? You're like, I can be, unless you're founding your own company, the CTO role may be 5 to 10 years down the road because you want to be as proficient as possible in, let's say, 3 to 5 languages, probably three. Um, and you want to know those before you decide to take a CTO role. what does success look like now and in the future? And so when you think about that success could be career growth, salary, the industry you're in. Maybe you like, oh, I want to be in health tech, and then you're like, no, I want to be in e-commerce. So your industries could always change. The experience that you gain, you're like, I want to do tech, try tech out in Silicon Valley, and then I want to try it in Chicago, and then I'll come back to South Carolina because I want to try it in different regions of the country to see what it looks like. Then maybe it's locations, like South Carolina still gets somewhat of a winter, but the Bay Area does not. So maybe it's going to be location for you and where you work. And really, really look at what does success look like for you now and in the future, because it's really important when you're creating your strategy. This is so out of order. Give me 1 second. Yep, that is not supposed to be there. Okay. So what we want to do now, I'm going to stop the presentation, and I really want to talk about where's, because some of you are adding comments in here, and I can go through about and how to execute and really just focus on growing the network. But I really want to talk about more of where you are in your pivots and your career progression, like what questions you specifically have for where you are and where you're trying to go. Nobody? If not, I can always go back. Let's see. We have some comments. I did a coding boot camp, but no questions. Okay. Now I can go back to the slides. Wrong screen. There we go. Let me see. This goes somewhere. That should be there. Okay. And
Oh, I have a question real quick.
sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if I was like supposed to type it or just somebody
No,
said
you can.
I could unmute.
Yeah, you can unmute.
Okay. Um, so I got an associate's degree in web development and design, and my first job out of school was in a web development position. And I discovered that maybe it was just this particular group of people, but they were software engineers, you know. Um, so that kind of turned me off to development. That really wasn't what I was looking for, because I also have a marketing background. So to me, web development, web design kind of combines those two. But I didn't really find that true to be on the web development side, like in the real world. Um, so now I'm trying to pivot to more web design, and I'm just like wondering, how do I get my foot in the door, because all the entry level positions are basically like, oh, you need 2 to 3 years of experience, you know. So I'm kind of in the what comes first, the chicken or the egg scenario. Um, and I'm working on putting together a portfolio, but those are just kind of going to be based on businesses that, you know, need a new website. I'm not particularly going to be working with them one-on-one, although I will pitch the finished site to them to see if they would like to implement it. And anyways, I was just wondering if that was a good strategy in terms of getting a portfolio together and getting something that will put me in front of people that will actually will have interest.
Okay. So how long did you work as a web developer?
For about 2 years.
All right, that's your 2 years of experience.
Okay. Okay.
It,
Yeah.
they are looking. So web designers are typically less technical. You're
Hmm.
coming in with technical experience plus the ability to visually design. So
Mhm.
the two you have the 2 years.
Okay, gotcha.
Just whip, yeah. You're like they said they want somebody who makes cupcakes. I build 3-tier wedding cakes. It's like so you're just gonna put the batter in the little cups now, and it's gonna take
Yeah,
less time to bake.
okay. That makes sense because I do get really hung up on like what the job listing says, you know, what their wish list is. And sometimes I read those and I'm like, that person doesn't
It's
exist.
they don't,
um,
and they put it all in there for $35,000.
yeah, yeah. And then I'm just like, this can't be reality. So what my strategy now is to I'm also new to the Charleston area, so I'm trying to do more networking within our community. And also I really do want to put together that portfolio though of specifically design work. Um, and I would feel more comfortable at that point, kind of like going for these design jobs. So, anyways, I
I,
guess you pretty much answered my question. I mean, it's like I'm kind of underplaying the experience I do have. I don't know. I just it's kind of like hard to keep yourself going and working on this thing and not knowing if it's actually going to get you on somebody's radar. So,
it Charleston is not. I've been other places. I'll put it that way. Charleston is not to me, or it's the South Carolina. I put because I'm in the middle of nowhere, so I go to Augusta, Columbia, and Charleston, and every all of them about an hour, 15 minutes away from me. And so what I'll tell you is, it's building those relationships matter, but also look and see from where you're originally from. If you have a traditional BS or associate's degree, who from that alma mater is here in Charleston or even in South Carolina,
mm,
and use that network first to tap into the native Charleston or third circle, as we say on LinkedIn, third level connections on LinkedIn. And so don't just think, oh, I have to go everybody Charleston. You can use your other networks and see who they know, especially on LinkedIn, to help you tap in. Also, just posting and commenting on other people's posts in Slack channels and Facebook groups, and just lending people, answering people's questions really helps to grow that as well. If you're looking for customers, there's always somebody looking for web development help at this point. But especially during the pandemic, there are a lot of small businesses trying to figure out how to get online or how to update their 1998 or '08 website. And so if you're that person, and the problem is with people that they don't want to pay much, so you have to figure out to make sure you're compensated fairly. And they're usually the harder sell, over $500, but they're usually the worst customers. So I would say lean towards the people that pay you 2,500. And that might be business coaches, e-commerce stores, and stuff like that. So,
okay,
yeah, look, the cheaper the person is, usually the more difficult client they are. But I didn't say that on our recording. But but they usually are. Did that answer your
gotcha.
question?
Yeah, yeah. Since it's especially during this pandemic, it's just hard to get like a second opinion, you know, on what all your thoughts are. So it helps just to clarify, you know, what I'm thinking versus what needs to happen. You know what I mean?
Yes,
But
I
yeah,
do. So one thing I do want to do while I'm here, and I usually do it in all my communities, post your LinkedIn connection, your LinkedIn profile link if you're open to people, and it has to start with a HTTPS now with LinkedIn with Zoom, so that it's clickable, and share that link if you're open to other people connecting with you. And this is one easy way for other people within your net. One easy way to grow your network. And this is how I always start off all of my Zoom monthly community events, so it makes it real easy for engineers and scientists and they're usually introverted, but it's like, oh yeah, I'll share my LinkedIn network, and they'll tell you, oh, I'm an electrical engineer, or I do this, oh, I'm in this industry. And it's really the small things like that of how you meet people and how you really connect with other people, and it really starts to grow your network every time you do that over and over again. And some people are like, oh no, I'm very particular. That's fine. It's really up to you. Okay, you had a question, and I want to say, is it Lynn who you moved from Southern PA and have noticed logistics and warehouse is very big in the area? You have AS and BS project management from Villanova. Never took the PMP. I didn't either. I just not but we know how to do project management regardless. And are you looking, Lynn, to my experience was with City Credit Card? So do you want to get into logistics or project management, Lynn, or were you? I'm a natural organizer, planner, schedule. Should I take the PMP? Um, so let's take a look at it. If even if you've been out 10 years, the tech has changed in supply chain and logistics. The principles have remained the same. What I would ask you is, as you're looking at job postings, are they requiring a PMP? Because what I'll tell you is like you said, you're a natural organizer, planner, and scheduler. So while you've been outside of an industry for 10 years, you've taken that same skill set to a different industry. And I'm sure you can show that in writing. And so some places really love it. Other places they it's not a must have, it's a nice to have, and they'll put it in the job description. And you can do some additional research on LinkedIn to really see if people within that organization with that job title or even a job title above have their PMP. Are you seeing it more times than not? And I really just kind of research that for the organizations you're seeing, because sometimes we end up doing all of this work, paying for stuff because it's on a job description, and then you get there, you're the literally the only one. You'll be the only woman, and you'll have all of these damn degrees and certifications, and you'll be like, "Are you serious?" And so, I would do some research before I tell you to invest the money. If you do decide to go that route, it's a couple people I recommend. I don't know if you have anybody in the Charleston area. I think my two people I know one is in Atlanta, but that you have in the community that you could possibly work with in Charleston. So I, yeah, don't spend the money yet. Do some more research. I'm all before you spend. I'm all about doing the research. Not many require. Yeah, then I wouldn't get the PMP. I would just showcase that you can do PM work in the other roles you have. I would not spend the money at all. I would let somebody else spend the money. Let's see. Lean. I don't know much about the Lean certification. Oh, Lean Six Sigma. Is that still a big push? I know. I know a lot of places. It was 20 years ago. I'm not sure if they're pushing it. When GE was leading in the field and Toyota was talking about it a lot, there was a huge push for it. I'm not sure if it's still as huge as it was. So I would go that route. Um, Again, research that. I've had some younger engineers in my community get their Lean Six Sigma, like their green belt, but their company's paying for it. They aren't in, the company, the employer wants it, so the employer is paying for it. And let's see. I want to get back to, is it Leah? Liah? Um, Software engineer, but I feel like it has changed a little. If you are still here, if you don't mind coming off mute, I do want to talk about that.
Hey, I'm not currently trying to make a pivot, but I feel like there's been some changes in like people being able to pivot to software engineering. Like I did a boot camp and that went well for me and I was able to get a job, but I feel like people are a little bit more wary of that now. And I think it's kind of hard to figure out exactly how you should educate yourself. Like, do you need to just make a portfolio? Do you need to get a boot camp? Do you need to have a CS degree? So I don't know. thought that would be helpful to talk about.
Sure. Again, this is what I advise people, even when it comes to college. Like, what college has a good engineering program? I said the ones where the students graduate with a job. And parents are like, what do you mean? I said, when you go to the campus to do the tour, go by the Career Center, ask them 3 questions. For your child specific major, number one, how many people have a job? Students, seniors, or graduates have a job 90 days before they graduate, 90 days after they graduate, and a year after they graduate. That will let you know how long your child will be at your house sitting on your couch. Right? And see, these are the same things we need to be asking not just employers, but also boot camps, colleges, of course, and then other communities. So, women in tech communities, Grace Hopper communities, like what are they seeing? And is anybody really tracking this data specifically for women going through boot camps or getting 2 year associate's degrees in computer information systems or computer science? And I know there's some data out there on the graduation rates and the matriculation rate, like how long we're staying in, but how long is it really taking us to get that first job? And I think it's really important to know at each level, even if it's self taught, boot camp, 2 year degree, 4 year degree, and even higher, what does that look like? And that really helps us understand how much we're willing to invest and how much time we need to spend in determining a path forward. And it's always going to change. And so there are some great resources in there, who are not familiar with the SC Tech, SC Cyber, with the SC Council on Competitiveness, to check them out. Definitely. Life sciences and healthcare. Ooh, that sounds exciting. Uh, Carl, what's the let me before I skip to Carl. Was did I answer your question?
I was just
Yeah,
gonna,
thanks.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was interject really quickly. It's about 12:45, so I just want to make sure we stay time wise. If there was more to your presentation, if not, we can.
No, no, no.
Oh,
This is what I'd rather do. Rather talk through their talk. I do have a hard stop at 1. I have another call at 1.
all right. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss anything. Thank you.
You're welcome. Leah, was that everything?
Yeah. My only other question is just about like not pivoting, but creating goals when you're happy where you are, but you're trying to like make sure you're
Yeah,
not just sitting there and doing your work only.
exactly. So create when you create those goals, it doesn't always have to be for career advancement or progression. It could be it's certain types of projects you want to work on. It could be you want to learn a new language or you want to work on a with an international team on a project. So you're stretching yourself in a different way. What you do want to make sure, if your company's doing this, setting up your annual goals, right? Are your annual goals in line with your career goals, short and long term? And oftentimes they are not aligned. Your manager wants you to do one thing, which is counter to what you want to do. And so you want to make sure you're having these conversations with your manager. Number one, where do you see me going in the organization? And that's going to tell you one thing, whether or not that manager may or may not support where you want to go. Number two, what do you think I need in order to get to X, Y, and Z, where they want you to be as well as to where you want to go? And three, how do we fill those gaps so that I'm able to get to that level? And so it's going to do a few things. Number one, that manager's like, oh, I don't want you to go there at all. You should focus on this. He's like, didn't I just tell you this is where I want to go? So you already know that manager is not going to help you get there. So you need to change teams, change managers, change companies, or spend that time to get a certification to broaden yourself some other way until you can get more directly on goal with somebody else. So really have those conversations with your manager. And oftentimes we don't have them soon enough, or we don't know where we want to go yet. And we're really happy. So what else will keep you happy? And sometimes it's just learning and stretching ourselves so we don't get bored. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Carl, I'm hoping I'm not skipping anybody else. Life sciences or healthcare? What about them?
Well, I think Michelle, first off, go Tigers, and second off, regarding the life sciences or healthcare, it was in response to what Lynn had a question she had posted regarding medical or the medical field. So I
Yeah.
think if I was just trying to differentiate which she wanted to go, and we've got a great state partner, state agency organization, SC Bio. If it's the life sciences, I definitely encourage her to check them out.
Is Lynn still on? You want to elaborate, or did you get an answer that you were looking for to your question? She said, thank you, I'll research them. Okay. Just want to make sure uh, we were addressing it, and I'm not sure. And so a lot of your skills are definitely, skill sets are transferable. Oftentimes we're doing so much, and especially things that come naturally to us, we don't see the value in them. And so if you are trying to figure out what your skill set is, do these three things. Ask people, what do you do well? Look at your emails from work, or think about what were the things that people asked you to do the most often at work. Were you the one always putting out fires when it came to uh, production issues, dealing with customers? What was it they were always coming to you for? Were you the fixer, or were you the one that could really do business development well and like close clients? So really think about what were the things people were texting you early in the morning, late at night, and emailing you. Yeah, you're the fixer, but what specifically were they asking you to fix? Like, was it more about the on the planning, the execution side that they screwed up? Was it a relationship? Like, I had a great senior director, he's an electrical engineer. He had no personality. He killed every relationship. It was horrible. We were building a 50-mile transmission line. The client put a substation in the middle of it and told us we couldn't build it. They brought in somebody else, and we were doing 8 substations and 9 transmission lines on $1 billion project. They said, "Oh no, you won't do this one," because their engineers didn't want to deal with him. Are you the fixer? How to word emails to clients, tech questions, and planning. Ooh, oh, I love that. Okay, how to word emails to clients. Are you so when you say how to word emails to clients, is it in response to sales, critiques? Can you be a little bit more specific?
It'd be more in response to critiques. This comes from like my marketing background. They might have had, the client might have been pitched an idea or a package, and if, it's always kind of hard to tell them like why this is not a good. They might be excited about it, but these are the reasons why it's not a good idea. That those emails in particular are always kind of awkward. So, but for me, writing comes naturally, and being able to phrase something and still leave things on a positive note is a natural tendency that I have. So if I wasn't doing that for like one of my clients at the time, other people would come to me and say, look, I got a scenario, like, how would you word this?
Oh, your wordsmith. You know what? Why are you, this is, you have me so excited. You've done marketing. You know how to do web development, uh, software development, but you're moving to web development. Why are you here?
I'm just trying to find my home in tech. I decided to just go back to school and go for it because I've always wanted to try to get into tech somehow. So I just, the development thing just wasn't my deal. Like they were not interested in words. They were not interested in like how this will be perceived by the end audience, and so I think web design maybe more of the branch I need to be into. So I'm just trying to figure out like how to get in there, and like how do you project all this experience in a cover letter or in a resume, that's being in a funnel online. I know we don't have time to discuss all that, but I mean, that's really what I'm struggling with. So.
Holly and I are on the same page. I was thinking product manager, because your user, you know how to talk to customers and the users, you know how to talk to the engineers. Trust me, that's hard.
Yeah.
So UX, UI, exactly. So Holly and I think your skill set is really, really in that area, UX, UI, and product. I think you'd be really great at product to try either or both of those. And there are really some great a couple of job boards if you want remote work, you're open to remote work. So there's
Yes.
Remotive.io and there's Angel.co. And
Okay. So do you put together a portfolio with kind of like your?
No.
No.
If you well, for the UX UI probably, but if you're looking for a product management role, you're going to say you've already done web development and you've done marketing and you know how to talk to customers. They're going to be so happy to have somebody that can talk technical and be able. It is very rare for people to be
Yeah.
able to translate it in any space. This is even in civil engineering, electrical engineering, in the tech space. Nobody wants to talk to customers. Engineers only want to do their design work. And anybody that has that skill set to talk to non-technical people in non-technical terms, translate it back to technical terms, it's very far and very few. And I think if you can really hone in on that, you are going to be very, very invaluable to an organization. You're going if you can
Gotcha.
show that in your profile on LinkedIn and on your resume.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. I think you are where you need to be.
I just need to like revamp my outreach to
Yeah.
kind of hone in more. Okay.
I would say I don't have anybody. Do I have anybody in product? I do have somebody, but her LinkedIn, she's a VP in product at VMware, but her LinkedIn doesn't say much at all. Oh, check out productsouth.com. It's out of Chicago. You can still Google it or search for it on LinkedIn. I cannot think of Lily's last name. I can't spell her last name. But it's Lily with one L, Lily, because everybody else spell a little bit differently. But she's part of Product South, and I can't. If anybody knows a good product manager LinkedIn profile that's really detailed, share that with Melanie. I just can't think of anybody right now. We're horrible at it. That's why. A lot of times we know it, but in really how to showcase it. Lily has a non-technical background, and so her profile might be up to date. I don't remember. It's been a few months since I looked at it.
Gotcha.
And I'm just trying to think of people with a non-technical background. I'm a requirements manager, product owner. Try Carol Hussey. So there's some comments in here that may be helpful to you
Yeah.
as well. All right.
Thanks, ladies.
I think that was the last question in here, unless there was something I missed. Otherwise, I'm gonna turn it back over to Valerie.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. Scared sighted is my new, or scare sighted, I think you used, is like my new
Yeah.
word. So I feel scare sighted all the time, but I appreciate it. And you've given out some amazing advice. I've written down most of it. I see my manager next week, so he's got some questions now. But thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We'll see you again February the 3rd. And a big thank you again, Michelle.
It was great to be here. I love the interaction part.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.